Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 4, Episode 4 of HBO's Barry, entitled It Takes a Psycho. So this title is a callback to the most pivotal moment, I think, of the episode, the argument between Hank and Cristobal and everything that led up to it. So when Hank reveals his desire to work with the Chechens and take over LA, Cristobal is appalled at what Hank did to get there. You know, killing the people who trusted them, these people were bought in on this sand thing, right? They trusted him. They were oblivious to any kind of betrayal because they thought this was on the up and up, and it was particularly cold-blooded and ruthless for Hank to do what he did, killing them and nearly killing Cristobal by mistake, which I'm going to talk about that scene a little bit later too. But, you know, he says he never would have fallen in love with a psychopath. Cristobal says this. And Hank says it took a psychopath to save him from his crazy wife, which is true, just not something you want to say in that moment. And I want to start here because I thought this was a powerful scene, or a powerful sequence of scenes. And, you know, fairly late in this argument, they start to drop hints that Cristobal is going to have to die. Saying you know too much is a little bit more than a hint, but I digress. The entire argument and what ultimately happened to Cristobal, and I think this was intentional, by the way, felt like something Hank was trying to avoid having to do in the future, and not like something Hank was trying to avoid happening right then. And that really got me. Like that tricked me. So when he's passionately trying to get Cristobal to stay, it felt like he was trying to stop something that he felt was inevitable if Cristobal left, which is true. But once Cristobal left and Hank cries, in an incredibly moving performance by Anthony Carrigan, by the way, it felt like he's crying over what's gonna have to happen. Like, oh God, he left and now I'm gonna have to kill him. This is terrible. Not what's actually happening at that moment. So I love the reveal that Cristobal was never actually allowed to leave, because it immediately makes Carrigan's scene hit you even harder, because you realize that the devastated cry was because he knew what was happening right then and not because he was sad it was gonna have to happen in the future. And I like how the show even faked this out by making it look like Cristobal that came back. Like they really pulled this off really well, because I bought it hook, line, and sinker. Hook, line, and sinker, man. Even sadder, Cristobal kind of brought this on himself, right? Like, remember in episode 2 when Hank was saying that they had Barry to help with the sand job? And he's like, what the fuck? Why are you bringing up Barry? And it turned out that Hank really just wanted to help Barry get out of prison. And then Cristobal said to him that Barry doesn't care about him and it's shit like that makes other people think he's soft. That interaction, combined with Barry snapping on him in the last episode, undoubtedly played a role in Hank's decision, as well as obviously the threat from the Chechens as well. But like, I don't think Hank does this if his gangster wasn't consistently called into question. So moving on to the rest of the episode, though, I want to start by saying that I'm shocked we didn't get to see any portion of Barry breaking out of prison. Shocked. Like, I thought that was gonna be this season's epic scene. Like this season's like Ronnie Lily moment, or the last season's highway chase. I thought Barry's prison break was gonna be this season's version of that. So I was kind of surprised we didn't get anything there. But the episode then kind of plays up three different directions Barry could go. He can go after Gene, he can go after Hank, or he can go after Sally. Interestingly enough, we don't even see Barry until the second to last scene. And I feel like Bill Hader has like 2-3 lines of this whole episode. So they did a good job of having Barry constantly looming without ever actually showing Barry. So I'm going to kind of like hit a couple of these real quick, and we're going to spend most of our time talking about Sally. So Gene is sent to Big Bear, and when he finds out that Barry has escaped, he hits full paranoia mode, and he sits by the door with a gun pointed at it. He falls asleep, and he's awakened by someone attempting to come in. He shoots them through the door and runs immediately, and then we find out that it was just his son bringing him the food that he had asked for when he had got dropped off. Now, it looked like a shoulder wound, so I'm assuming he's going to be okay. But at the same time, I mean, like, anybody could bleed out. Like, he's on the top of a mountain in the cold. Gene ran off. I don't know. Maybe, I feel like he's not going to die from a shoulder wound. Like, he's probably just going to get up, but who knows? We already talked about what happened with Hank in this episode, so that just kind of leaves us with Sally. Sally has agreed to help the girl from the class that she berated last week. Her name's Kristen. She's agreed to help her get the part. You remember she mentioned last week, like, hey, I did get a part. I need to crush it. Can you help me? Turns out Sally's agreed to do that. And it's a role in some ridiculous superhero movie that is unimaginatively named Mega Girls. And after about 1.3 seconds of ridiculing that name, I remember that our superhero movies in real life, or our superhero characters in real life, have names like Batman, Superman, and He-Man. And I quickly shut the fuck up ridiculing anybody. Like, I loved He-Man, and to this day, I am baffled at how someone came up with that name for that character, and that it went past all the people that had to go past to end up in front of 6-year-old Michaels in television. And I was sitting here, yeah, He-Man. And somebody was like, yeah, really, He-Man? Anyway, it's a terrible name. So Sally and Kristen show up at the set, and the movie is directed by Sean Hader, the real-life director of Coda. And I love Sean Hader in this scene making fun of the idea of directing both, what's it called, Mega Girls and Coda. And it was a funny scene. I thought she delivered the line really good. It was something like, yeah, like when people watch this, they'd be like, that's the woman who made Coda. Something to that effect. But it made me wonder if Chloe Zhao kind of feels the same way. Because that was, to me, the comparison that was being made here, I think. Having directed Nomadland, and then, like, her next movie was Eternals. And I think Eternals is better than anyone gives it credit for. It's not as bad as everyone says, but I still wonder if she feels the same way. Like, I did Nomadland, and then I did Eternals. Anyway, I also liked how when told to think about a sacrifice, Kristen says the last time she sacrificed was when her boyfriend was 5'3". And that was pretty wild, because she looks pretty tall. So Sally then begins to show Kristen how she needs to deliver her lines, and she starts to do this in front of Sean Hader, and it very quickly turns from a coaching situation into an audition for Sally. Like, it's an interesting move for a character to try to steal Kristen's role in this moment, but it also says a lot about Sally that she was willing to do it over a shitty superhero movie. Like to do that to that girl, to play a role in Mega Girls, it's like it shows Sally's desperation. And she gets so into the performance that she hilariously steps between Kristen and the camera, which the camera is meant to represent Sean Hader. So we're thinking like, okay, she's looking at Sean Hader and Sally's slightly off center, and it's almost just like, yeah, in case the audience didn't understand that I am now auditioning for this role, let me just slide over here and make sure you don't even see Kristen anymore. I thought that was brilliant. So shout out to whoever directed this episode, or if what's her name, Sarah. I'm sorry. Actress who plays Sally. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your last name right now. But I wonder if that was something maybe she ad-libbed, like she thought that was funny. I feel like the director that was probably even in the script, but still, great. That was hilarious. Great moment. And now, after facing rejection after rejection and hardship after hardship, and being told they'll find the right roles that she is appropriate for, when Barry appears at Sally's apartment, she seems willing to go along with him. And that makes sense for Sally, right? You know, she's been continuously rejected. And now here's the one guy who has nothing but acceptance for her. So makes sense. So not a ton to say about this episode. A couple of quick thoughts. We see Fuchs getting beat up a lot in this episode, and we come to learn that the whole prison now respects him, presumably for taking an ass whooping like this consistently and not snitching. Which, ironically, he couldn't snitch if he wanted to. He didn't send anybody to kill Barry. He just knew about it. But I'm wondering where this is going. Like, Fuchs's storyline has been kind of pedaling in place up to this point, and I'm wondering if, I don't know, like he's in prison isolated, like both in the literal sense of being isolated in prison, but his storyline is isolated from everyone else's. He's the only one in prison. No one else we know is there. How is Fuchs gonna get tied into the remainder of this show? And then lastly, and I mentioned this earlier and I said I was gonna talk about it, I love how they filmed Cristobal not quite drowning in the sand. That was scary. Like the way he was partially submerged, and then he starts to submerge, and then you see, like, then it all goes black, and you just hear him kind of like gasping for air. And what I thought was cool here is that it forced you to imagine what that must be like, because you can't see anything. So, like, if they had done the same thing and you saw a picture of the sand on the screen, I don't think it has the same effect. With the screen being black, your brain is now just like trying to fill that emptiness in, and I'm filling it in with this thought of like, oh my God, he's drowning in sand. Open your eyes, sand. In your nose, sand. Open your mouth, sand. Ears, sand. Everything is sand. Dick hole, sand. Everything's got sand in it. And I'm just like, the idea of like you can't breathe through either your mouth or your nose, or you're just, sand is just going in, and then you hear Hank, but of course you can't see him. You just hear Hank on the other side. They do a great job with making his voice get louder as he gets closer. Really great, intense scene. And it's things like that I feel like this show does really, really, really well, taking these moments that kind of they feel like nothing you've ever seen before. Like, I've never seen like someone drowning in sand filmed in that way. Like, again, I've never seen something like the Ronnie and Lily episode, or like the highway chase last season. So like, those sorts of things I think this show does really well. I loved how they filmed that scene. That was pretty intense. So, I mean, like I said, that's all I really got for this episode. Not a ton to talk about. But again, I continue to like the stuff they're doing with Sally on this show. Curious to see what they're going to do with Fuchs here. Curious to see what's going to happen with Gene and his son. Curious to see what's going to happen with Hank now. Like, there's a whole lot of ramifications that these characters are now left to deal with. Like, when we come back next week, what happened to Gene's son? How is Gene going to be dealing with this? How is Hank going to be dealing with what happened with Cristobal? How is Fuchs going to be handling this newfound clout in prison? So, like, all kind of interesting things this episode set up, along with the great moments for Anthony Kerrigan to show out, continuing a really interesting plot line for Sally. And yeah, this season, is going pretty strong, throttling towards the conclusion. I will see you guys next week, episode 5, and until then, peace.